Good evening. I'm Gary Franchi, Next News Network Chief White House Correspondent, delivering the latest White House news from the past 24 hours here and with our streaming partner, Trump Daily Post. Tonight's lead is President Trump's Pennsylvania defense push. Nearly $10 billion in new private investment, more than 4,000 projected jobs, and a clear message that this administration is rebuilding American strength, backing law enforcement, and preparing a major address on election integrity tomorrow night. And now, the full White House rundown. According to the daily guidance, the White House Wednesday began with executive time for the president at 8 a.m. at the White House, closed to the press, followed by an 11 a.m. policy meeting in the Oval Office, also closed. Now, the guidance also set the day's central event, the president's trip to Carlisle, Pennsylvania, for the Pennsylvania Defense and Innovation Summit at the U.S. Army War College. At 10:19 a.m., the in-town pool observed that no Marine stood outside the West Wing entrance, the usual sign that the president was not in the Oval Office at the moment. By 11:45 a.m. this morning, that changed. A Marine guard was back outside the West Wing, signaling the president was, in fact, now in the Oval Office. At 12:55 p.m., the restricted in-town press pool assembled near the Ellipse to await the president's departure for Pennsylvania. Around the same window, the out-of-town travel pool gathered at Fort McNair to board Ospreys for Carlisle, while the in-town pool handled the president's Marine One departure from Washington. At 1:36 p.m., the Ospreys lifted off for Pennsylvania so the travel pool could arrive ahead of the president. Then, at the Ellipse, the president's motorcade arrived at 1:33 p.m. President Trump stepped out and boarded Marine One at 1:35, accompanied by Walt Nauta, carrying a brown leather briefcase, along with Natalie Harp, Caroline Levitt, and another aide. Marine One then lifted off at 1:40 p.m. The White House pool also flagged a practical change that's been in place for weeks. Marine One departures now leave from the Ellipse instead of the South Lawn, which is why the departure pool is now classified as restricted. And during that departure window, pool reporters also spotted Margot Martin boarding Marine One, while Vice President J.D. Vance remained on White House grounds, greeting visitors, posing for photos, and handing out ice cream. No, there was no sign of Joe Biden waiting for his. In Carlisle, Marine One landed at 2:22 p.m. Secretary Pete Hegseth, Senator Dave McCormick, and Dina McCormick, Army Secretary Dan Driscoll, Major General Trevor Bredenkamp, and General Christopher Leneve were on hand to greet the president, with 75 members of the Old Guard in the arrival cordon. President Trump exited Marine One at 2:26 p.m., greeted Hegseth, McCormick, and Driscoll, and answered a shouted question on Iran, saying, "I don't like giving deadlines, but they pretty much know." He entered the Beast at 2:28, and the motorcade rolled out at 2:30. And just 2 minutes later, the president arrived at the War College. Once inside, the summit began to take shape. The president entered the auditorium at 3:30 p.m. to Lee Greenwood's song, praised it as a great song, greeted participants seated around the round table, and took the center seat between Secretary Hegseth and Senator McCormick before beginning his remarks at 3:33 p.m. The participant list underscored the scale of the event. Top leaders from Lockheed Martin, Boeing, General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, Hanwha Defense USA, Blackstone, TWG Global, the building trades, and other major industrial and investment firms joined administration officials and Pennsylvania leadership. President Trump wrapped his remarks at 4:26 p.m. after announcing nearly $10 billion in new defense industrial base investment for Pennsylvania, projected to create more than 4,000 jobs. The White House spotlighted a $2.5 billion General Dynamics investment in Navy submarines, while the broader summit message centered on peace through strength, industrial revival, and Pennsylvania's role as an arsenal of freedom. The president also previewed action to remove illegal alien truck drivers from American roads and prioritize American veterans. At 4:53 p.m., the president exited the stage and the press pool was ushered out. The motorcade rolled again at 4:56 for the short drive back to Marine One. President Trump boarded Marine One at 5:01, waved to the press, and lifted off for Washington. just a few minutes later. And back at the Ellipse, Marine One touched down at 5:45 p.m. The president stepped off at 5:49 and entered a waiting vehicle for the short return to the White House, accompanied by Caroline Leavitt, Margot Martin, Natalie Harp, and Walt Nauta. Will Scharf was also seen stepping off a support helicopter. The White House then called a travel and photo lid for the evening. And a quick correction did follow. The official lid time was 6:04, not 5:58, because the briefing room clock was running several minutes slow. In a White House release, the second lady, Usha Vance, launched the prize website for her summer reading challenge. The program, open to children in grades K through 8 through September 4th, lets students submit reading logs and reflections to earn prizes, with participation already running triple last year after more than 20,000 students joined the 2025 pilot. And that is the White House record from the past 24 hours of President pushing defense investment, American jobs, border enforcement, and election integrity, while keeping a full schedule from the Oval Office to Pennsylvania and back.